talking about practice. Not a game, not a game. We talking about practice. Practice, man.
Hello, friends. We're here again for another night of Lockdown City. And I thought because we're all alone and it's late at night, what better to do than draw some hot babes? And for that, I thought we might look at the work of pinup illustrator Jim Silke. Today's agenda is going to be a look at who Jim Silke is, his biography, a gallery of his work, and then a sketchbook that I found at a comic convention years and years ago that actually has some of the rough pencil work for the finished pieces that you find online. And then we're going to take that and try to practice drawing some of the women, figure out what techniques he's using to make them look so good, and try to draw our own gals. Okay, let's keep going. Let's learn a little bit about Jim Silke. After a career as executive art director at Capitol Records and as the creator, editor, and designer of the magazine Cinema and Movies International, as well as glamour photographer, historian, and novelist on the Death of a Dealer series, Jim Silke turned in 1991 at the age 60 to his first love, writing and drawing comics. Let's take a look here at some of this pinup art as I continue to read. He has since completed the graphic novels Rascal in Paradise and Betty Page, Queen of the Nile, plus 3 illustrated art books, 2 about the world's leading pinup girl Betty Page, Queen of Hearts, and Betty Page Rules, and one about his often hilarious life as a pinup artist called Pinup: The Illegitimate Art. All his books are published by Dark Horse Books. I'm actually looking at Pinterest here for these images.
We talking about practice. Practice, man.
This sketchbook I picked up, it's called Jim Silke Sketchbook. I picked up years and years and years ago at a comic convention. And you can see it's just paperback bound. 2003, I guess, was when it was published. I probably picked it up maybe in 2005. And one of the great things about going to comic shows, at least back in the day, was so many artists had self-produced sketchbook material like this, and you could get an insight into what was really going on in their mind. Especially for a young artist like me, I wanted to see the rough work and not just the published work, because I felt, and still do feel, that by looking at this rough stuff you can sort of deconstruct it and figure out what makes it work. A lot of Silke's sketchbook work is against a dark surface, like a colored paper, probably a brown paper or sepia paper, and then he's using dark pencil for the dark side, and then like a white, maybe a white Higgins, and maybe some white colored pencil for the light side. I guess what I mean by that is that the paper provides a midtone. Here on the skin, for instance, he doesn't have to worry about the woman's skin tone. The paper provides the midtone, and then it's up to you as the artist to define the black and then the white, you know what I mean? And that provides your tonal range. Whereas a lot of times, you know, conventionally, when we just start off with a blank piece of paper and a black pen, we're all the way over here. And we can't do anything about over here because that's already defined by the paper. And it's all about managing the, you know, progression of like getting lighter, in a sense, you know, trying to feather or use techniques to take something black and bring it this way. If you start with the tonal paper, you have a midtone already, and then you're worrying about playing with the 2 margins. So it's kind of a different dimension to the drawing.
We talking about practice. Practice, man. We talking about practice. Practice, man.
I don't have the facial construction, and it shows. Um, he's using a pencil here. I started off with a brush pen. This is not a Pentel Aqua brush, but it's very similar. This one actually comes from Japan. I started off kind of trying to block out the hair and work on getting this beautiful mane of hair correct, and ended up not really getting the facial anatomy right. I feel like really what makes this a beautiful woman is the cheekbones, the really strong cheekbones. And if you don't have that in some way indicated, you're missing out on her. One of the nice things about using I used a crappy brush from like a kid's watercolor set and made my own little brush holder, and Higgins Black Magic ink, and the top of a jelly jar. One of the it's actually not Higgins Black Magic. It's a non-waterproof ink, and the reason I do that is because then you can kind of go over it a little bit with the water marker, and I don't know, try to make some small changes to make the thing better. There's no doubt that the allure, what part of the allure of Silke's women is the makeup, or the like beautiful strong lines on the face. Around the eyes and under the eye. I feel like my face is just too long here, and there's just nothing about it that's going to make it better. Yeah, there, I ruined it. A lot of artists will not show you themselves ruining a drawing, but if I didn't ruin a drawing, then there would be frankly nothing to show you. If I didn't show you me ruining a drawing. That turned out nice. Even in something that you're otherwise making a hash of, as the Brits say, you can usually find something positive. Yeah, I think my face is too long. I think for me, I tend to make the face too big. In reality, the face does not occupy but half of the skull, bean. This is the whole face down here. I usually putting the head up, the eyes up there, and making everybody look like that. But in reality, most faces are like this, and then this is all head. And I think both these drawings suffer from that. Okay, let's keep moving. I showed this drawing before, but I didn't do my version of it. I tried to make the woman a little bit more sexy. This woman is not for me. And I don't think I succeeded, because what really makes this drawing good is the eye position. And I did not capture that at all. But we might be able to fix it with the Higgins. In her pose, she has this pouty look, like she's been sulking, and now she's looking at me. And in mine, I think I just got carried away with the eyeball. Let's see what we can do here. All right, we're gonna let this dry, and then we'll like kind of go over it a little bit and see if maybe, you know, redefine the eyeball and see if maybe we can make that a little bit better. Let's look at the rest of the drawing though. Here again, he's not defining every strand of the hair. Maybe because this is just the rough, and if we saw the real one, we would see more hair, but I don't think it matters. And maybe for the work that I'm doing, we can take this approach. Certainly in Modesty Blaze, the hair is kind of a one big black mass. It certainly draws attention to the face more. I tried to do something with the hair, and I don't think it paid off. I was using a bit of a thick brush, but there's a quality to my hair that his does not have. Another thing about his that's real nice is the blouse. I think I managed to pull that off a little bit better. My boobs are a little bit mashed down, but one of the things that makes Silke's women sexy is he's not making the boobs like outrageous, you know, bolt-on implant pontoon boobs. He's giving the boobs like a real shape that gravity gives them. I was trying to do that, and I think they just turned out a bit frumpy. All right, let's see what we can do with these eyeballs. Does that look better? Yeah, it does. It looks a lot better. As far as the rest of the face, let's see what we can achieve here. I'm going to just try to take this brush and put a lot of water in it. You probably should go a little bit wider brush for this, but his nose is a little bit straighter. Yeah, this brush is a mess. Another thing about Silke's women is he's not afraid to work in here, you know, in this area underneath the eye. And I think a lot of us are afraid that we're going to make our girls look too old if we define that area, but it's not the case. If your anatomy is good, you can put lines all over the face. If your anatomy is off, if your proportions are off, then every line you make looks bad. The reason why so many artists have no lines on the face isn't because they're afraid of making their women look old or whatever the textbooks say. It's because their anatomy isn't right. So they need to not make it any worse by putting lines on there. I just have a jelly jar full of muddy water at this point. That's what you're hearing. I don't think that looks bad, but definitely his looks better. Okay, let's keep going. Somehow it looks like I must have gotten this from him because that's his signature right there, right? So I have it signed by him. Okay, barbarian girl here. Of course, the boobs stand out in more ways than one. And maybe this is not a great example of natural boobs, but they don't look like fake boobs. They just look like gravity-defying natural boobs. Boobs on Mars or whatever. In my case, I was more interested in this pouty expression. And here, there's no question that the lips are a big part of it, and I didn't really capture that. I was afraid of going too heavy on the lips. I can't bring the camera any closer because I can't get sharpness. I have the focus all set up. But here, there's a couple things he's doing that I did not do. I'll try to improve. We're just learning how to do these videos right, so you'll have to excuse these early issues. Okay, there we are. much better. Right here, his hair contours to the head. My hair does not contour to the head. My hair just kind of poofs out. And listen, I'm very attracted to women with big poofy 80s hair, but it looks better when it looks more savage, you know, more primal when it doesn't do that. All right. Her eyes are more wide apart than mine. I think that in most of these drawings that we've seen from Silke, the hair is framing the eyes when it's a straight on look, and the eyes are kind of coming out of the hair like this, and that's, you know, that's sexy, especially when you have like a pouty mouth. You know, that's kind of what he's going for. Another thing that I struggle with here in this drawing for certain is this region here. Really the region that is defined by the eyebrow and the top of the eye. Basically the most important thing when you're drawing women. That's what I struggle with. You know, this negative shape there, this shape right here is really, really important. And the higher you're able to arch that eyebrow and get away with it, the better, you know, the better it looks. That's not a great example, but here in his, there is a nice high arched eyebrow. All right, a couple things here. Yeah, we can talk a little bit about the body. What makes this body work is that there's just such a nice full anatomy. A lot of people shortchange the volume of the rib cage. You see that in a lot of tutorials, especially for a woman. We don't want to make her have a barrel chest, but it obviously works here. And I think I was able to capture that, even if my pose is a little bit too far back, or she's pushing a little bit too much, it seems to work. Yeah, keep your chest volume there. Okay, here, tonal paper, really nice contrast. My woman is not nearly as beautiful as hers because here there isn't as much forehead, and I gave her too much forehead. Look how much forehead my girl has, and look how much a little forehead she has. My girl is mad. This girl is alluring. I didn't put the flower in, but it probably would have been better if I put the flower in. The one thing I was able to do here is do a nice job on the hair. I started off just by defining the shape, and then I worked on these outside shapes. It seems like whatever you do on the inside, even if you just make it all black, if you have a nice lyrical outside, some nice lyrical outside shapes, you'll be well served, you know. And then I did come back with a couple white highlights at the end and try to carve out a little bit on the inside. But most of it is just going over and over on the inside until it was suitably dark. I wanted to do a little bit more with the highlight because I'm using an ink wash, and I was afraid if I did any more, I was just going to ruin it. I'm afraid if I do any more, I'm going to give her a beard. Well, let's see what happens. One thing about using ink wash, even with the Pentel pen, or whatever you want to call this type of pen, is you have to think about the stroke where it starts and also where it ends. Because you know that there's going to be a little bit of water and ink at the end of the stroke. So, for instance, here, you know, you want to pull it all the way to the end and finish it over here where you can't see it, you know. Otherwise, you'll end up with a little line, and that's why there's that little bit of lightness there, because I didn't pull it all the way. Pull it all the way to there. This part is working. The lips is working by getting a really high contrast in there and not worrying that, you know, intuitively we say, oh, don't make her lips black, because that doesn't seem to make sense. But it makes sense. It is an area, especially when a woman's wearing dark lipstick, an area of high contrast, the white shadow and the darkness of the lips. It's something he does, and it's definitely working here. Is there any way to bring that hairline down? Probably, but it would really be a hack. Okay. Okay. Now, very nice profile shot. Beautiful. Here, it's clear that the strong cheekbones are what makes the girl look so beautiful. And the backlighting here on the hair, you know, you wouldn't think of throwing the whole face into a low contrast shadow, but it definitely works here. Even if you didn't see her back, even if it wasn't about the back. I made a terrible mess of this. And again, it's because I don't have the head proportions right. Her chin does not really jut forward. Mine does. Mine definitely does. And I had to go over the nose area with white and just really made a mess out of it. I didn't get the cheek right. This stripe doesn't make any sense. Let's see if we can get rid of that. This one was a real struggle. I think to do this girl right, you have to get the correct relationship between that cheek shape, that jaw shape, that lip shape, you know. You have to get these relationships right. And I did not. Not here. That negative shape from the side is just as tricky as from the front. You know, this shape right here. This one was a struggle. I put the ink wash on the back. Even though I didn't get the musculature right, the ink wash looks nice. What does this show us? That, you know, he did it in pencil or whatever. If you have a good ink wash going, you can get a nice effect even if you really don't know what you're doing. Okay. I think that Silke did some Vampirella pinup art, so there's a lot of vampy looking images here. I'm not interested in swords. I'm not interested in the collar or the costume, but the idea of a you know, a skinny hot girl is definitely with great hair. Who doesn't love that? And here I think I started getting it together in terms of the drawings. In this one, the eyes leave a little bit to be desired. But overall, well, that was a mistake. But overall, I think I do have it. I made the hand a little bit big. This torso is a little bit long. In the original drawing, he has a lot of her midsection there in shadow. I didn't care about that. I was really trying to work on how to model the you know, the breasts are coming forward towards us in Z, and yet this part is laying down, and yet there are the stripes. It's not obvious how to do that, and I wanted to try to achieve that. And then, you know, as far as the midsection goes here, let's see. This is not an endorsement for these ink wash pens because they have their limitations. If you see these little nuggets or these little weird strands that come off, those are very annoying, and I have not found a way to limit those. But any ink wash, whether you're doing it with a pen or not, can give you some nice effects. There on the gal's belly. I'm not a belly button fetishist, but we're going to talk about details and sexy details here in a minute. So for some people, it is an issue. My hair does not look as good as his hair. And I just feel like I am putting a lot of emphasis on trying to create a highlight in there when I really should be just defining a mass. One of the nice things about using the brush pen here, or any kind of a wash, is that it's not going to, even though it looks black at first, it's not going to go on pure black. You see, I am getting a little bit of light there. Cheekbones and strong eyeshadow. So far we've seen that in really all of the women. Yeah, there we're ruining it. By working too much around the nose, you're going to ruin it. And I think I did.
Practice. Not a game, not a game. We talking about practice. Practice, man.
Okay, Kate Moss. The Tank Girl drawing. Well, this was one of the best ones I did. I messed around a little bit in the hair, but I was kind of following his example. And the pose was really easy to emulate. What I was really trying to make sure I did was capture this. Obviously, this is what makes the pose great. That highlight there. And that strong cheekbone. And I do think I was able to capture that, even though I wasn't as brave. You see, it's just a very slim sliver there, and I made it a little bit wider, but it worked out good. The wash looks good, not because I'm doing it so great. It's just because the first time you do it, you make a line, then you fill it in, and then you make another line, and you're like, well, that's the core shadow. Is it really the core shadow, or is it just that's what I, put it on that way, and that's why it looks that good? But yeah, just because of that, there's a dark stripe. If I was more sophisticated about it, I would find some way of darkening this, maybe with an art stick, so that it blends in a little bit better. But this is a good example of how, if your proportions are right, if you have a drawing with the correct anatomy, you can put black all over the face and it will look great. If you don't have the anatomy correct, then every single line makes the girl look worse and worse and worse. I think that her hair will look just as good if I stop hitting the camera. Her hair will look just as good if I just take the black and fill it in like this, because it's not about the highlight in the hair. You know what I mean? Looks just as great. In fact, by eliminating that highlight, I think I'm putting more emphasis on her face. Okay, this is going to be the final drawing we look at. I think it's obviously Kate Moss. My drawing looks nothing like Kate Moss. Because I didn't get the proportions right. And I just kept dithering and dithering and dithering and making it worse and worse and worse. But the reason why this drawing is interesting is also down here. I read an interview, believe it or not, an interview I read with a fetish photographer once upon a time, and they were talking about how many different fetishes there are and how precise people are with their fetishes. And if you really want to create alluring women, you have to try to encompass all the different things that attract men. Of course, boobs and all the rest of it. But even down to, we talked about hair, feet. So let's try and draw some sexy feet following the example here. I think that this line, for a lot of men, is what makes the feet sexy, is this curve right there that kind of emulates our wrist curve. And that's the big toe. Get your hand out of the way there. It's not necessary to create a line for every single piece of anatomy. You're just trying to make the shapes that work. You know, if you look at a lot of women's feet, they look like pterodactyl claws up close. You're just trying to create an overall shape and not get too much into the details on every single wrinkle. I don't care also about the stylings of this particular shoe. It's not important. Nice. Okay. Well, that's been Jim Silke's pinup artwork. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe. Please check my artwork out on my website, scottgross.works, and my Instagram, scottgross.works. And happy drawing.